Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Sobriety Society International channel. I've been away for a while. I've been working on a few projects that will enhance the quality of people in recovery as far as their sobriety is concerned. And I thank all of you for signing up, subscribing, and pressing the bell for notifications and leaving me comments. As you know, you scroll to the bottom and leave your comments. I've been asked and stopped a lot in my daily commute about the last video that I did. A lot of people out there found it real valuable, and I like to add something to it, and I don't want to be long-winded about it, but one of the things that I rediscovered when I recovered is the mere fact that my relationship was totally different from religion. I found out for me, and it's safe for me to talk about myself, the higher power that I serve was more interested in relationship than in religion. In other words, no relationship, no recovery. Last time in the last video, we talked about recovered versus recovering. And if you haven't seen that video, go to it, because this is going to be somewhat part 2 to that particular video. And one of the things that we found out is, and again, using myself as an example, is that I recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body because I found out that spirituality was the solution, because I am a trichotomy, which comprised of a speaking spirit that lives in a body that has a soul, or another word for soul is mind. And notice, 5 of my 6 senses are in my head. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, 2 ears. So therefore, I'm saying that to say this: our 5 senses can be deceived, but our spiritual sense cannot. So what I want to talk about today is, prior to me coming into recovery, I did not, and I want to strongly emphasize, I did not believe in God, man, or beast. I believed that he that had the most drugs and the most money wins the game. And I was succeeding because I had both in large amounts. However, we know it's not about how much you used or who your connections were, nor is it about how much you dropped on the floor. Neither of that is the problem. The problem is centered between your ears, your thinking. I was, or I thought I was, what I've heard a term called agnostic. Until I looked the definition up, and if you recall in our first video, we talked about some tools of recovery, and one of them I asked you to get was the Big Book Dictionary, simply because I did not want to convey my opinion, because opinions are like garbage cans. Everybody has one, and that's what got me in the rooms of recovery, is following misinformation from misinformed men. But in our Big Book Dictionary, I'd like to read the definition on what I thought I was. And it's the definition of an agnostic. And I read: one who believes the existence or non-existence of God cannot be proven or known. A person unsure that God or a God exist. Wow. For me, when I did my 4th step, I found out something real frightening. I found out that there was a God, and I had tried to be him all my life. But what happened was I developed a resentment with God, and we all know resentments are the #1 killer of people who are addicted. And it was killing me because, number 1, I wasn't God, and number 2, I just found out how difficult it is to be him. So now that I've recovered, what have I recovered that is of such great value to me? Well, that's what I want to spend the rest of the duration of this video on. I'd like to draw your attention to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm going to show you 4 things that I had to, notice this word, rediscover before I recovered. I thought I had to discover them, but when I really examined it, I had to rediscover, because in order for me to be returned back to sanity, I must have been sane at one time. And I remember when I lost the sanity, I made the statement to myself, I can't wait till I get grown. But when I got sane, guess what I said to myself? Thy will be done, not mine. I want to show you something on page 46. And it is centered in the middle of the, well, it's not really the paragraph, but the second paragraph, the first paragraph on page 46. Almost to the end, the second sentence. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness, that's the third principle in our step. First step, honesty. Second step, open-mindedness. Third step, principle, willingness. Express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commence to get results. I talked about that in our first video about efficacy. And efficacy is merely the ability to get results. That's the only thing people respect, results. Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Only our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. I had to rediscover that because I was fully operating out of my will as opposed to concern about what his will was, right? Page 47. I want to show you something else that's interesting. Well, better yet, let's go to page 55. Let's look at the second paragraph on page 55. And it reads, actually, we were fooling ourselves. You know, the biggest con game in the world is self-deception. For deep down in every man, this is why I say I had to rediscover, because it was already there, but I didn't realize it. Woman and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are as facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we have to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. You know, it's interesting. There must be something inside. Well, there is. There is something inside of you and I that was placed there by God that is so valuable that both him and the devil were fighting over to try to kill you for. And if you ever rediscover what it is, because only things that are valuable are hidden. So the very thing you and I were looking for, we were looking for in the wrong places. What we need to do is look at it inwardly and find out that what we're looking for, we already have. And what is that? The power, the source, right? I want to go to 2 more places. And page 56 talks about this guy who thought he was agnostic. And he questioned himself when he was in a hospital bed. And one of the things that came to him, because he was a minister's son, he was exposed to religion, And maybe that's what made him develop his resentment. But once he started to put his anger aside with God, he came to his senses, and this is what he said. Page 56, third paragraph, second one. Who are you to say there is no God? He said that thought came to him. And then you look at the bottom, he says, this man recounts that he tumbled out of bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. The barrier he had built through the years was swept away. You know, the walls that he had put up. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Why? Because he was going after the created and missed the creator. Or in other words, he went after the resource. Now he's connected back to the power, which is the source. Look what it says next. Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude has shaken it. His alcohol problem was taken away. That very night, years ago, it disappeared. What? Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned. And at such times a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly, he could not drink even if he would. God has restored his sanity. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. You know, God will use circumstances and conditions to change your outcome because he can't go against your will unless you allow him to. The myth is that our will don't work. Our will does work, but the big book says we didn't properly use the will. In other words, if your will didn't work, how did you become successful at doing the wrong thing, which is becoming addicted? Even so, has God restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us grow into it more slowly, but he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we draw near to him, meaning God, he discloses himself to us. So that tells me right there, God will speak to us and guide us. And I want to leave you with this. That was the great rediscovery for me that I had to get before I recovered. What was I attempting to recover? I was attempting to recover my relationship with God. You know, I hope this video has helped you. I do understand that there are many people out there who are still suffering both in and out of the rooms. But I want to tell you one thing. God could and would if he was sought. So therefore, he can't and he ain't if he's not. All right. This is your big brother in recovery. I hope that you subscribe to the channel. You leave a comment. And I'll see you real soon. Talk to you.